Okay, so now we are going to do calculating for mode in ungrouped frequency table. So we've given you an ungrouped frequency table. You want to calculate for the mode. Now, previously, we've looked at what ungrouped frequency table means. Now, how do you even identify that a table or a frequency table is ungrouped? I mentioned that you check the variable column. Usually, in a typical frequency distribution table, the variable column is the first column. So if you check this table, the variable column, this is the variable column. Okay, now how do you know it's an ungrouped frequency table? You check the variable column will be in single or unit values. So you see here is single value. So 125 is a single value, 134 is a single value, 160 is a single value, 185 is a single value. Now, if the variable column was in classes, like let's say 4 to 6, 7 to 10, 11 to, let's say, 15, if the variable column was in classes like this, then you can say it's a group frequency table. But this one we have over here is an ungrouped frequency table. Now, if we ask you to calculate for mode in ungrouped frequency table, it's very simple. Okay, so this is a typical example. This table is showing the blood pressures of patients on a particular ward in a hospital. So we have different blood pressures. We have patients recording blood pressure value 125, 134, 160, and 185. Now, these are the number of patients. Here, we can also call it a frequency. So for 125, 18 patients recorded 125. Now, for 134, 53 patients. For 160, 12 patients. For 185, 106 patients. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, if we give you ungrouped frequency table, calculating for the mode is very simple to do. Now, what are you going to do? You simply have to just focus and try and identify the frequently occurring or the value over here with the highest frequency on this side. Now, let's look at the blood pressures. We have 125, we have 134, we have 160, we have 185. Now, let's observe the frequencies. Observing the frequencies, you can see a high frequency over here, a high frequency of 106. Okay, and that goes for the variable 185. Okay, so for blood pressure 185, we have 106 patients. Okay, so the highest frequency is 106, and that goes for the blood pressure 185. Okay, let's keep observing. If you check, you can even observe the least frequency. The least over here is 12. And that corresponds with the blood pressure 160. Is that okay? So if we ask you the least occurring blood pressure or the blood pressure that was least commonly recorded among the patient, that was 160. And then the highest, the least is 160. The highest is 185. Okay, so the question states that identify the modal blood pressure. And that is, the modal blood pressure is the blood pressure with the highest number of patients. That is 106. The next question says, identify or state the frequency of the least occurring blood pressure. You have to be very patient with the question. The question says, identify or state the frequency. So you see over here, they are not asking for the least blood pressure, the frequency of the least blood pressure. And that is 12. So you always have to know, so 12 or 12 patients. So you always have to understand what the question is asking. But usually for ungrouped frequency table, calculating for mode is very simple. Now let's come to this very question. Now we have another table over here. On this table, we are presenting selected hospitals. So we have some health facilities over here. or clinics over here. We have Rich Hospital. We have Rich Hospital. We have Mamprobi Hospital. We have Dansuman. We have Tema General Hospital. Is that okay? And then we have number of patients. Okay. Now, typically, if we give you an ungrouped frequency table, it's very simple. You just observe the variable column. So, for example, we have diseases, malaria, cholera, cancer, and then let's add typhoid fever. All right, so we have diseases. We can have number of patients over here. Now, let's assume this table is representing disease occurrence in a particular hospital. So let's say hospital A. Hospital A, and we are presenting the occurrence of diseases in that hospital. Now, let's put in some values. So for malaria, let's put in 10. For cholera, we can put in 24. For cancer, let's put in 35. And then for typhoid fever, let's put in 2. Is that okay? Now, for ungrouped frequency table, identifying mode is very simple. You just try and identify the variable column, which is usually the first column, that is disease. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 different diseases or diagnoses over here. Identify the variable column, then identify where the frequencies are. Just observe the highest frequency. Here, the highest frequency is 35. So that means that the most occurring disease in hospital A is cancer. As simple as that. So the most occurring is cancer. Why is it cancer? 35 patients are getting the disease. So if they ask you what is the most occurring disease, you don't say 35. The most occurring disease is what? Cancer. Remember that with frequency tables, we usually identify the answer inside the variable column. We do not usually identify the answer in the frequency column. The answer is always identified in the variable column. Just that usually the frequencies will help you to identify the answers. But we usually identify the answers inside the variable column. So if we ask you, what is the most occurring disease? You not say 35. It's cancer. What is the least occurring disease? The least occurring disease over here is typhoid fever. You not say the least occurring disease is 2. It's typhoid fever. But if we ask you specifically, what is the frequency of the most occurring disease? Then now you can say 35. You remember that there are 2 different questions. So if we ask you, what is the frequency of the most occurring disease? Then your answer will now be what? 35. But if we ask you, what is the most occurring disease? It's cancer. What's the frequency of the least occurring disease? Your answer will be what? Your answer will be typhoid fever. Sorry, your answer will be 2. But what is the least occurring disease? Your answer will be typhoid fever. What is the frequency of the least occurring disease? 2. What is the least occurring disease? Typhoid fever. Is that okay? So you always have to pay attention to how the question has been formulated. Now let's come back to this very question, our question 2. Now there are times that we can present some tricky questions to you that you may have to make advanced deductions before you get the answer. So we have a hospital. This table is showing different hospitals. Now they are telling us that the total number of patients, let's assume, is 405. So we have 405 patients over here. This is an assumption. So the question is telling us to assume a total number of patients to be 405. Now the hospitals, we have Rich Hospital. How many patients? 50. We have Mamprobi. How many patients? 4A. We have Dansuman, how many patients? A. And we have Tema General, how many patients? 2A. Now we say they are telling us we should assume total number of patients should be what? 405. And we all know that usually total frequencies would usually end up giving us what? The 405. Okay, the total frequencies. So meaning when we add all the individual frequencies, it should give us the total frequency. And the question is saying we should assume a frequency of 405. Now let's come to the first question in the table. It said calculate for A, this A. Now the second question, how many patients visited Dansoman Polyclinic? That's the second question. The third question, which facility recorded the highest number of hospital visits? Which facility recorded the highest number of hospital visits? Now the fourth, which facility recorded the least number of hospital visits? Now let's do this calculation together. Now first of all, we need to identify the A, because see, without identifying the A, you would not be able to identify the highest or the least occurring, the facility with the highest or least occurring visits. So first of all, let's solve for the A. But remember, if we sum all the frequencies, we should get the 105. So to identify the A, let's sum up all the frequencies and equate it to the 405. Now, our analysis. So we are going to have 50 plus 4A plus A plus 2A is equal to 405. Now, the next thing we are going to do, we are going to group like terms. Remember principles in mathematics. You would be allowed, you are permitted to add like values. Okay, now we have the like values here. We have a letter over here. We have a number over here. So you will not be able to add this 50 to the A related values. So we can add this 4A plus A plus 2A together, but we can add this 50 to the 4A, the A, and then the 2A. So this is what we are going to do. We will group like terms. So we'd have 4A plus A plus 2A is equal to 405 minus 50. Okay? Now, let's put this 4A plus A plus 2A together. We are going to get 7A is equal to 355. Then let's divide each side by 7. Why? Because we want A to stand alone. So A is equal to 355 divided by 7. That will give us 50.7. 50.7. Now we have 50.7 over here, but remember, frequency cannot be in what? In decimal. So this A here is 50.7, but remember the principle in frequency. Frequency as a value or as a concept should not be in decimal. So let's run this to the nearest. We are going to get 51. So A is equal to 51. Now, if A is equal to 51, this A directly would be substituted for what? Dansoman. So Dansoman over here will be what? 51. Now, Mamprobi, their frequency is 4 times A, meaning 4 times 51. That will be 204. So here is equal to 204. Now let's come to the 2A. Tema general, their frequency is 2 times 51. That will give us 102. Then here will be 102. Is that okay? So now we have all the values. So now it means that Rich Hospital is 50. Rich Hospital, we have 50 patients. Mamprobi, we have 204 patients. Dansoman, we have 51 patients. Tema General, we have 102 patients. So once we've been able to get the frequencies for all the hospitals, it means that we can answer the other or the next questions. Now, the second question states that how many patients visited Dansoman Polyclinic? And that is here. That is 51. Okay. Now, which facility recorded the highest number of hospital visits? Which facility recorded the highest number of hospital visits? Now, let's observe the frequencies. So you see over here, we have 204 for Mamprobi. So Mamprobi recorded the highest number of hospital visits. Which facility recorded the least number of hospital visits? The least number of hospital visits remains the Rich Hospital, which is 50. Is that okay? Now, let's look at the last question. Now, another question that we can ask you with this is that, remember, the first statement here, the total number of patients assumed is what? 405. We can ask you to calculate for the adjusted total. Because you see, because of the principle of frequency, you made some adjustment with some of the frequency. So it's very possible it can influence the total frequency. So now let's sum up the totals again. So we are going to get 50 plus 204 plus 51 plus 102. That will give us 407. So you see, the total frequency has now been adjusted. So the adjusted total is now 407. Is that okay? Great. So that is it. So here, the principle is that usually the total frequency, if you add all the individual frequencies, it should give you the total frequency. Okay? And the total we are dealing with over here is 405. So you add 50 plus 4A plus A plus 2A, then you equate it to 405. So 4A plus A plus 2A, that will give us 7A. The 50 goes to the other side. We have 355 divided by 7. We divide by 7, we get 50.7. But frequency cannot be in decimal. You run it to the nearest, we have 51. Because frequency is a discrete concept. So 51. Then we have 51 for the A. Then for the Mamprobi is 4A. So 4 times 51, we get 204. Now, Tema General is also 2A. 2 times 51, we get 102. Is that okay? Then now you try and sum it up together. You realize that the total will now be adjusted to 407. Okay? After you've now completed the table, then now you can go ahead and solve the other questions. So how many patients visited Dansoman Polyclinic? Then now it's 51. Then you write the answer there, 51 patients. Which facility recorded the highest number of patients? And that is clearly Mamprobi, recorded 204. We can ask you, what is the frequency of the facility that had the highest visits? What is the frequency of the facility that had or recorded the highest visits? And the frequency is 204. That is different from we asking you which facility recorded the highest number of patients. Is that okay? Great, that is excellent. So we will look at another example, a similar example to this, and then we see how to go about it.